Here we go. I think we're live. A formal welcome to the strongest element. This is about humans in cybersecurity, and it's really great to spend time with you all. Thank you for joining. And as I said before, please ask any questions. If you've got problems with audio or you want to ask the panelists anything as we go through, please use the chat function and let us know what you'd like to know more about. We're going to do a few things today. We're going to talk broadly about the topics of people in cybersecurity, and we're going to hopefully tell some great stories because we've got some really interesting panelists lined up for you. We are really interested in thinking about what it is that attracts people to our industry, what kind of roles and functions and responsibilities people can exceed and excel at in our industry, and then what some next steps to take are. Let's say you're interested in joining the industry or moving within the industry, or just connecting with different people. It'd be great to cover that kind of topic as well. So we've got a really broad and diverse set of panelists I'm really excited to introduce you to and to have you hear from. My name is Ben Monroe. I'm your moderator for the day. I've worked in a number of different roles inside of security. I currently run product marketing for the Cisco Security Business Group. And as such, I'm responsible for the storytelling, for the messages, for the positioning, for a lot of the work that we do around talking to the marketplace, whether it's customers or analysts or media, around the different products that we have and the different solutions that we offer. And prior to that, I've worked in different parts of the industry, in different parts of the world. So super passionate about evangelizing the message around cybersecurity, why it's an interesting industry and an important industry to work for. And then I'll just say a quick word about kind of who's brought us together this morning, and then we're going to go straight into the panel discussion and I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves, because really they're the keepers of their own stories and can best introduce us to who they are and what they do. We're brought together today by Grit and Grit Search, and Grit's a really innovative company, really new company to the world of recruitment in Asia. I've always thought about recruitment and the partnership we had with recruiters as critical in our industry. In fact, wherever I've worked, we've got amazing work to do and incredibly important work to do inside of cybersecurity. And we don't always have the time to source the best candidates, to do the right background work, to be able to understand where to pull from in terms of a talent pool. And so partnering with a company like Grit is critical, has been critical to me in terms of my success as a professional and the success of me and my colleagues to build great teams. And Grit is really built on that fundamental of developing relationships. It's a talent first company. They care about their industries, so they're putting together events like this. Grit is well known for putting together, physical events, getting together, groups of people in the real world. And now that we're more remote in our current climate, they're doing a lot of these kind of Zoom events as well, so that we can connect even though we're all perhaps stuck in our homes. And so Grit fulfills a place of being a specialized company in Asia, a partnership focused company that works with talent and with organizations across technology and in the startup community and other verticals too. So I'm super proud and happy to work in partnership with Grit to help them kind of present their message around the digital and the technology companies and the sectors in which they work, and to help promote the message of finding the right high quality talent for the right roles. And really today, one of the things we should think about is how can hirers in the cybersecurity space find the right roles? How can people who are really interested to join cybersecurity learn more about the business? And how can we connect those two? And part of it's through working with a company like Grit, and part of it's through working with events like this and making connections on and offline like this. So I'm really happy to be working on this. I'm happy to introduce and integrate this team together today. So before we get into our panel, let me just say a quick word about the profile of the panel, and then Linda, forewarning, I'm going to come to you first and kick off the intro. So the panel today is built of a really diverse set of individuals. We've got the head of an incubator and someone that's going to talk about the startup community. We've got a founder of a company who will talk about what it's like to be a cybersecurity startup leader. We've got a CISO advisor, somebody who can talk about what it's like to have that kind of top job inside of security, and also what it means to be an advisor and an advisory CISO. And then we've got a threat analyst. So that really covers a whole different range of functions inside of cybersecurity. And so what I'd love to do now is to move into those individuals and start telling their stories. So Linda, if we start with you, just tell us a bit about what it means to do your role and kind of how you got it. Like just give us the elevator pitch and the intro on you.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Ben. So my name is Linda, and I'm the program head over here at I-71. So in Singapore, they love acronyms, right? So it's I-71 stands for Innovation Cybersecurity Ecosystem at Block 71. So if you're not familiar with Singapore and Block 71, it's the hub for, all the startup activity. And so we're the cybersecurity element within that. And we're the region's first cybersecurity entrepreneur hub. So basically we facilitate connections between the entire spectrum of the ecosystem in cybersecurity and those interested in entrepreneurship. So, we're an incubator, we're a landing pad for more mature cybersecurity startups who want to grow and scale in the region. We also have people in our community who are interested in getting into cybersecurity, like many of you may be here today. We have a program where we inspire aspiring cybersecurity entrepreneurs or those who want to work with cybersecurity startups to get into the ecosystem, get into the community, meet people, and really connect with them. So on a daily basis, on any given day, I could be talking to a student, a startup, a government agency. We're supported by IMDA and the Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore. We have corporates and institutes of higher learning. Our founders are Singtel Innovate, which is the venture capital arm of Singtel, and NUS Enterprise, which is the entrepreneurial arm of the National University of Singapore. So yes, we connect all those elements in the ecosystem, and we hope to bring people together, and really part of it is to develop this talent pipeline for cybersecurity.
Thanks, Linda. And then so you said a day for you might be talking to a founder, a government agency, some startup, some talent that wanted to work in cybersecurity. What kind of balance do you find within that spread of potential activity? I mean, are you spending equal times there, or are you a lot of time working with the government? I mean, how does it divide your day?
I feel like most startups, we have no balance. We talk to everyone every day, right? Like, I don't think that you can sit back and say, okay, today I'm going to be spending a certain X amount of time talking to this segment of the community. I think what's great about it, though, is that since we're constantly, people know we're the hub for cybersecurity entrepreneurship. So we get a lot of interest in terms of people wanting to either join our ecosystem, right? Apply and join as a cybersecurity startup, as Pedro from Build 38, like they're part of our I-71 program, and to be a part of our community. And really try to connect them with, for example, government agencies who have grants. And Singapore is well known for that, right? So many government grants, so much government support. And so we work closely with the governments, corporates, of course, like CISO was our corporate sponsor, and really trying to get those demand drivers in front of our startups, and seeing like, what are the issues that the CISOs are facing? What are the issues that the companies are facing, so that our startups can help try to address that. And then, of course, like I said, we deal also with people who are just interested, cybersecurity enthusiasts, people who want to learn more.
Great. And what's the most frustrating and then satisfying part of that mix that you just described?
Okay, I guess I'll start with the frustrating. Could be, I think it's hard, cybersecurity. I mean, maybe you can ask probably Pedro more about that, being a cybersecurity entrepreneur. But, I think it's hard to get into this because unlike other, startup verticals, It can be a really long sales cycle. A lot of trust is involved. So a lot of our startups feel like they need to get in front of people, for example, to really pitch their idea, pitch their solution, try, you know, and of course at this time it's very challenging, right? It's hard to meet in person with the pandemic. And so those are challenging issues that we're trying to help our startups with right now. But I think the great part is that we're all working together and we're all in the same boat. So it's not like it's just, you know, one segment that has to deal with this, right? No one can meet with each other in person for the most part. And so we're all working together, you know, to come up with a solution that works for everybody.
Cool. Good. Well, thank you, Linda. Great to meet you. Why don't we then go? You mentioned Pedro. Let's go to the man who's got the telescope over his left-hand shoulder. So clearly he can see into the future or into the stars at least. Pedro, just give us a quick intro to you and what you do and what it's like to be a founder.
Thank you, Ben, and yeah, thanks to Grit to invite us to talk about this extremely interesting topic about talent. That, as you can imagine, as a co-founder, that's one of the critical parts: how to build a talented team for the company. So yeah, I'm Pedro Hernandez. I'm working for Build 38. I co-founded Build 38 close to 2 years ago. And I'm originally from Spain, from Barcelona, but I've been in Singapore for 6 years plus already. And actually, we founded the company Build 38 in Germany while I was here in Singapore, and that's one of the reasons that I'm basically taking care of all the activities in this region. At Build 38, basically, we provide solutions and software as a service for mobile security, and more specifically for mobile application security. So we work with service providers like banks, like super apps, like any kind of digital service provider that has a mobile app with some specific sensitivity or criticality for their business. So we help them to deploy that in a secure way. As I mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders. We are 8 founders that started the company. And actually, as you can imagine, as a co-founder, we have a very broad role. So we do sales, we do marketing, we do strategy, hiring, setting up companies. It was really an experience because my background is mainly technical to set up a company here in Singapore. And as far as it's very straightforward and probably easier than in many other countries, it's still a challenge to understand everything, to get the right support and so on. And luckily we are proud member of I-71, and of course all the support that we can get from these type of incubators and support organizations are extremely helpful and help us in this journey of founding a company. So I'd say that, talking about how I spend my time, that Linda was mentioning, that one of the critical parts of my role is being a co-founder, is to try to translate what we do. That we saw an opportunity, we saw that things were not being done right in our opinion in the market, so we saw a problem. So translating discussions about vulnerabilities, about software updates, about criticalities in ways to implement things, about processes, security processes, translating all that into business value. Because eventually, some people at the clients will be interested in talking about this type of things, but generally the decision makers and most of the stakeholders are going to look into the business value, right? So why do I have to invest into that? Which is the return of that investment? Is it increasing my revenue? It's reducing my costs and hence having better profits. It's having peace of mind because as in every industry, and that's one of the most difficult parts in cyber, is how do you translate these things into emotions, because of course you want to feel safe as a CISO. Of course you want to sleep at night. So yeah, that's basically the I would say the most interesting part of my time, how we have the internal discussions, how we translate that into something that we can project to our clients, and then collecting all that feedback and translating it back into development efforts, into man days or person days for developers and so on.
And what was the do you remember the moment where you said to yourself, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna start a cybersecurity company?
I mean, my background is technical. As you can see by the telescope, I studied, I have a major in physics. So I have this strong technical part in my background. And then somehow I started doing development work in a security company, a large security products company that is manufacturing chips and things like that. And I always toyed with the idea of starting your own company, being your own boss, and controlling, at least the perspective of controlling your own future. Even if then, of course, you realize that the range of control is somehow limited. So it was something that was already there. But then, working for my company, I realized about a problem that was out there with the discussions I had with clients in that company, and then as well some technology and capabilities we had in this large old-fashioned German company. So yeah, it's having discussions with my now co-founders that were colleagues at the time. We decided we think that there's an opportunity out there. Let's dare to do it, and it happened probably 2.5 years ago, and then it was really fast. So the moment that we make the decision that there's something out there, let's start pitching, let's go for it, there was no way back. Even if it would not work, it would not have worked with that approach, we would have found a different thing to start working on, because we were already excited and wicked on this.
Good. It's a great path to take, and congratulations on having made the jump. It's exciting.
Thank you.
We've got more to come on that. Let's keep going around the horn so we can cover everybody. You mentioned there that you want to make sure CISOs get sleep at night. So let's go and find out whether CISOs get any sleep at night. I see you may have changed location. You may have some form of racing gear over your right shoulder. Victor, are you with us? Or we may have a connection issue there. Let me just give it 1 second. If not, we'll come back to Victor and leave us on the cliffhanger of whether CISOs get any sleep. Let's go to our threat analyst. Let's go to Ben and ask you, Ben, what a threat analyst does, and talk about threat research as maybe the broad category, and then we can dive down from there. So,
sure, yeah. So I'm a threat analyst for Cisco Security. My name is Ben Horney, and I'm here in Japan. So I'm close to Singapore, but just a little outside, I guess. As the crow flies, I guess. But ultimately, what I do on a regular basis, when you think of a threat analyst, you might think of somebody who goes deep into the code and digs into how the threats work and all that, and requiring years and years and years of a computer science background. But I'm here to point out that there's a much broader side to threat analyst work, as far as that's concerned. If I was going to describe what I do in one sentence or less, it really comes down to I describe threat security concepts in a way that people without CIS degrees or computer science degrees will understand. So a lot of what my work entails is getting in, understanding how a threat operates, getting to know the deep level sort of stuff, but up-leveling that ultimately and bringing it out and then writing about it for folks to be able to understand at a higher level. So from a day-to-day standpoint, what I end up doing is I would write blogs about various security concepts. I also get into how various products in the Cisco security platform would protect you. And I also look at data and trends and write about what's happening out there on the threat landscape. In addition to that, I'm a co-host on a podcast here in Cisco called Security Stories, where we talk about the security industry as a whole. There's interviews with CISOs on a regular basis, and we talk about what's going on in the threat landscape in general. So it's a wide variety of things that actually fall under my plate. And just kind of goes to show sometimes that titles like threat analyst can be a very broad sort of thing. But there's a lot of room in there to do a variety of different things.
Tell us a bit about, thanks Ben, tell us a bit about some of the other folks that you work with in the research space. You know, obviously most security companies have traditionally had some form of threat research group, like
Right.
Labs, like Cisco Talos, like the different organizations. Why don't you just say a bit about that kind of function inside of an organization and the kind of folks that you work with?
Sure. Yeah, I work regularly with those engineers that do that sort of research, the low level, looking at the code and whatnot. I work regularly with folks within Cisco Talos. Umbrella within Cisco has a research organization. I meet with them on a regular basis to see what they're working on, what sort of stuff they've encountered. I've also worked with Cognitive within Cisco, another group, and sometimes with partners and various folks that do threat research. And ultimately just getting in there and talking to them about what's going on, what they're seeing, breaking on the threat landscape, what's the important threats that are out there. To give an example, I might sit down with somebody and say, hey, what's going on? They may say, well, Emotet is a huge threat that's out there and it's spreading. Or it could be a circumstances like what we're currently seeing. Emotet's on the way down, for the moment at least, it seems, and all these living off the land binaries, these standard tools that are in operating systems, these are what people or the threat actors are using these days, and they kind of guide me in those directions, and it informs then what I choose to write about, what I actually bring out there then on the blogs and the various areas, such as the podcast, what we end up talking about. But there is a lot of interaction with those folks, so I kind of work in many ways as an intermediary, talking to those threat researchers that are at the low level, and then bringing that back out.
Good, thanks, Ben. It's a fascinating world, and it's really where some of the nefarious activity that is taking place, that is designed to try and be a threat to all of us, to compromise our credentials, to steal information, etc. Where all of that's going on, and the battle to stay ahead of that and to develop tools to combat that is an extremely important one. So I think what you do is incredibly important and also interesting too. Talking of which, I think we've got a connection now to our last but not least, our panelist. We talked about keeping CISOs up at night, and so the man who can help us understand all of that is Victor. Victor, can you just give us a quick bit of background on, first of all, why you've got a racing helmet over your right shoulder, which I think what that is, but then maybe more importantly, what is an advisory CISO? What do you do, and how do you spend your time?
The helmet is Michael Schumacher's personally signed helmet. Michael, I'm a huge F1 fan, so I mean, it's unfortunate that he's in the state that he is in, but there you go. I got it personally signed. I stalked him in Montreal in I guess the late 90s, early 2000s. Anyways, I'm a advisory CISO, or what we call a CISO advisor in Cisco, the first one ever in Asia Pacific. I think Cisco wanted a interesting way to engage the senior ranks of the security C-suite in the region, and I'm hired to do exactly that. So I want to pick up on one of the things that Linda said much earlier when she talked about trust. Trust is very hard to build. So, startups, you have to gain the trust of investors, et cetera, customers, et cetera. And I think what I do primarily is to sell trust, selling trust or building trust. I don't want to say sell trust, because sell trust makes it cheapens it, right? We build trust. You build trust with a CISO. A few things I picked up, Pedro talked about, CISOs don't sleep, what CISOs worry about. You need to empathize with CISO. You need to understand what the pain points are. A lot of CISOs don't sleep. They don't sleep at all. I'll give you an example. One of the largest international banks in the world, a CISO who's based in the US, he was looking for a deputy CISO to be in this region. And the reason is because he can't sleep, because he's based in the US time zone, and he needed someone exactly covering the 12 hours difference that it's in his nighttime to ensure that there's a coverage there. CISOs don't sleep because everything is their fault, right? Anything and everything, including me losing my video connection a few minutes ago, that was CISO's fault at Intel, right? So so CISO has to be, you know, I can appreciate that because CISO has that title, Chief Information Security Officer. Anything that goes wrong, finger points to them. So building that trust and understanding and being empathetic to the environment and the challenges is the thing that Cisco wants to make sure that we're out there. We do all kinds of publications. We do a CISO benchmark study every year. We survey all the CISOs around the world. We make sure we understand challenges professionally in their environment so that we can help them. So we can design better solutions to help them or help them achieve the targets and the performances. So prior to this, prior to joining Cisco, I joined Cisco about close to 2 years ago now. I joined Cisco from Deloitte. I was the Deloitte cyber leader for Asia Pacific, and I was Deloitte cyber leader for the last 6-7 years. And then prior to that, I was in Canada. I lived in Canada, but I think I'm the only token Singaporean on this panel. I'm still, I'm Singaporean. I grew up in Singapore. I left after national service, and I went to Canada. I lost my way in Canada for 21 years. Built a security practice for Deloitte Canada, though, and to a very big security practice. And I moved back in 2010. So Cisco's offer was a very interesting one. It was the fourth offer that I spoke to Cisco about before deciding to join. I was the go-to-market partner for Cisco in the region, doing Security Alliance together with Cisco's product team out there evangelizing both Deloitte and Cisco's 1 + 1 = 3 message. And that was very successful. And so here I am. I'm enjoying myself thoroughly at Cisco and working with very intellectual people like Ben. Keeps me on my feet.
I'll be a token Singaporean too, Victor, and all that. Tell me what you mentioned. Obviously, the range of CISOs that you're working with, and the fact that they've got big challenges. What are the kind of backgrounds of the people that you're working with? What makes a good CISO, or what qualities and what kind of backgrounds do you notice in the CISOs that you're working with each day in terms of how they got where they got and how they found themselves to be a CISO?
Yeah, well, unfortunately or fortunately, I guess it's more unfortunately. There's a lot of the CISOs, the successful CISOs, are the ones that have a lot of experience. They need to have the experience in the field, doing various parts of the security job, because security today, the information security function or the cyber defense function or what have you, encompasses quite a lot across the entire bank. I say bank, just comes to mind, but you've got engineering, you've got operations, you've got your compliance responsibilities, you have obviously people management responsibilities. We talked about the need for diversity, which we can talk about. I mean, Cisco is very big on that, and we can have a complete separate webinar just based on diversity in cybersecurity for us. But and the most unfortunate thing, the people who rise to the top in as a CISO, I say unfortunately, is they had to be extremely politically astute to navigate the different stakeholders in the organizations to get to where they are. And that's what I've seen in the region, obviously before in North America and around the world when I was doing consulting for Deloitte around the world. And now in the region, especially, I don't want to generalize, but it seems to be a political astuteness is a key ingredient to be successful. Obviously the wisdom and experience that I talked about.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think that's where the C in the title comes from. Like when you're in an organization and when you're running something at scale and accountable to the executive leadership team of an organization, and there is obviously a certain amount of management there, which I think could be seen as a barrier, but it's also an opportunity because it means that you don't need a computer science degree to be a CISO. You need something more along the lines of organization and strategy and delivering against a key set of objectives, around managing a risk profile of an organization, etc. I wonder.
I agree with you more. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I don't have a CS degree. I have 2.
There you go. Living proof.
Yeah.
I say in terms of like background and just jumping, I should have asked Linda about the white hats and the black hats. Is that some kind of indication of the kind of people that you get in I-71, or is that an advert for the kind of people you're looking for?
No, actually, if we were, it was an advert for I-71, it would include like all the colors of the rainbow, right? And not just black and white, right? Because we include the entire spectrum of the ecosystem. But yeah, no, this is one of the key features at our space here at I-71 is our black hat and white hat wall, right? So as we get people coming through, whether it be like the students coming for the Inspire sessions where they're learning, you know, about becoming a potential cybersecurity entrepreneur, or we have visiting delegations, different governments, not only from the region, but globally, they come through and they're interested in talking to startups here. They'll come visit, of course, have to take an obligatory picture there. Yeah, I mean, I think we look for us in our community, we have, like I said, the broad spectrum. And I think that the key thing that really ties everyone together is that openness. And I guess like that willingness to learn and willingness to try something new, you know, whether or not it's a startup founder that's trying something and starting their own company, or a CISO who's like looking outside the box for a solution, and they're coming to our startups and they're saying like, look, what do you have that I could potentially use? So, you know, to answer your question, yes, I think if we're representative of our community, it would include a lot more hats, a lot more colors.
Good. No, I think it's really important. I love the idea of openness. Like if you've got such a diverse set of people and of functions kind of coming through your doors every day, the fact that there's common threads, openness, maybe curiosity, you know, people willing to learn and excited about learning more, that could be a common thread there. What do you think about the Pedro? Question for you about, you know, thinking about your journey and other founders that you know. Is it essential in cybersecurity to be founding from the position of being an engineer, the one who solves the problem, or do you think is there an opportunity for people who identify problems to be solved and find people like you who can build solutions to solve? What is it, I suppose, that makes an ideal founder in this space?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, it's extremely important that you have a grasp of what is the underlying fundamentals of it, the basic principles of the space that you are in. But I don't think that you have to be an expert or CS graduate for really being able to add value here. And especially in cybersecurity, you realize that diversity in like human diversity is extremely important because of this thinking out of the box that Linda was mentioning. But as well, backgrounds diversity are fundamental. And I'm here as an example. So I never studied computer science at school. Basically, I had to learn programming because, you know, when you get your physics degree, you have to do some programming to create models and stuff like that. And that gave me the opportunity to start working as a developer. Then I learned about cryptography by doing, working for a security company. And that cryptography fundamentals, I'm using them still today because these basics are very good to scale in this in the way that Ben was mentioning as well. So how from these vulnerabilities discussions, you go to the business discussion and even more to the emotional discussions that Victor was mentioning as well. So to create this trust, to see that you understand what you are doing, that you are going to be really responsive, that you are going to be delivering on what you are pitching and discussing. So I think that the diversity of backgrounds are fundamental, and you know, having good communication skills are paramount. Having attention to detail. So one of the best researchers that I work with for cyber was actually a climber. She climbed, do rock climbing, and she was extremely had an extreme attention to detail because, you know, when you are doing rock climbing, you have to make sure that you are securing every step that you take on the wall. Otherwise you fall. And she was very due in her diligence. They always pay this attention to detail. So as I said, I think this diversity is extremely important from backgrounds and from human perspective. And I really encourage that you know, if you like or how cybersecurity sounds, or you have the opportunity to jump into security, IT security, I think you shouldn't be concerned about having a CS degree or some techie background or anything like that.
Nice. I love what you said there about attention to detail and about communications too. I think communications is absolutely critical in our industry. And someone who maybe can add a bit more to that is Ben. I mean, talk about, you know, some of the diverse backgrounds that you find inside of the threat analysts and the threat research world. I mean, there's a very famous example recently of someone we had who said they wanted to hire librarians, right, as a good background for this kind of you know, this kind of function. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a wide variety of backgrounds that are, I would say, are naturally inclined towards work in cybersecurity. Librarians are a great example there. I was thinking about just that the other day. And I think my first introduction towards even using a search engine would have been, it dates me a bit, but it would have been back with Alta Vista and Hotbot and a few of these really, really old ones. But it was through the librarian in the university library saying, look, you know, you're using Alta Vista, why don't you try Hotbot? This is, or web crawler, I think might have been one of these meta search engines, you know, turning me on to these new concepts and ideas of getting information, obviously, but you know, this part of a research aspect that really ties to cybersecurity as well. And the other side of it too, I have a short little story here that I'm reminded of when it comes to you know, the idea of trying things and not being afraid to try things, especially in cybersecurity. And it's an example of a case where I didn't actually succeed in what I was trying to do. I did initially try at one point to get a computer science degree. And I went through CIS 201 and did fine. I got into 202 and it got a little more complicated. And I remember writing a program in C++. It dates me as well. This is before Java was released. So they were teaching in C++ at the time. And it was just a simple program with 5 floors of a building, and you're supposed to push buttons 1 through 5, and it'll go to the right floor. And I wrote out the code perfectly, and it didn't work. And it was so frustrating. And I didn't know what was going on. The point, it just kind of hit the point where I gave up. I walked away from the idea of doing a computer science degree at the time. Now, it wasn't probably the best space for me at that moment. And I did eventually end up where I am, but I came through journalism of all things. My background is I have a degree in journalism. I did do a minor in computer science eventually, but you know, there's probably a lot of folks out there, maybe some of the folks in there today that have tried these sort of things and thought, well, you know, this isn't for me. I tried it once, it didn't work. It's all about trying, finding out what works, what doesn't work, but also, you know, looking at different avenues. And that's where this diversity really does make a difference. If I hadn't failed at that one side or it just continued along that path, I might not have ended up where I was in the first place. So to doing all these different sort of aspects and at least giving it a go, it really is a core part of, I think, where most of us have probably found ourselves where we are today.
For the sake of people using elevators all around the world, I'm delighted that you ended up, it sounds like you end up in exactly the right spot. Hey, so that's great. Thank you. I was going to round us out. We've got a few minutes left. I was going to round us out with a question about how to get into your particular areas, but there's Hendrik in the chat here has asked a really good question, and it really pulls on the threads of one of the things Victor started to talk about. That, you know, Victor, you said that a CISO doesn't need to be from a scientific background. I chimed in and would heartily agree, and I think most of us have had some sort of theme of that. And Hendrik is saying, like, he sees a lot of job ads, you know, where there's a lot of heavy emphasis placed on maybe some achievements that is very hard or in fact are inappropriate. So he's saying that when you look at cybersecurity job ads, there's a heavy rotation on IT and engineering and academic qualifications. I mean, maybe we can just end up with a quick word from each of you, a word or two from each of you on kind of, you know, what do you think would be your advice for people looking at job ads like that seem to be against everything we're saying? The job ads are telling you have a very technical background. What would your advice be, and what kind of, you know, what kind of approaches can people take to get into the industry if that's what they're interested in doing, or to take a step up in the industry? I don't know, maybe let's go to the white hats and the black hats of I-71 and see what Linda's got to say on that topic.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that, I think you have to have some technical background. I think, I don't think that necessarily, the CISOs that I've talked to, I think that they're saying, look, obviously there is some technical aspects that you need to understand in order to be able to articulate what is needed to the board, to your stakeholders and whatnot. But one of my favorite quotes is actually talking about mindset versus skill set. And it says, in the future, we will hire the mindset and not the skill set. You're going to have a job that you don't know yet, using technologies that we don't have yet, and solving problems that we don't know exist yet, right? And I love that because it's true, right? I mean, how can you imagine the job existing that you have right now 10, 20 years ago? And so really, I think what's important is that openness, right? That mindset. That's, you know, they call it growth mindset. I know it's talked about a lot, but I mean, really a willingness to learn, willingness to know more. And like I said previously, I think that encompasses whether or not you're a startup founder in cybersecurity, or whether or not you're a CISO for a company looking for solutions to help your company. And that openness to innovation, to different solutions, I think it is really important. And so I think if it, you know, I'd probably say a good step if you want to get into cybersecurity entrepreneurship would obviously be to join I-71 and meet people and network with people in our community. But I think really, I can't emphasize enough, it's really the mindset.
Good, thank you, Linda. I couldn't agree more on mindset versus skill set. That's a great way of putting it. We've got a couple of minutes left. Why don't we go back to the Victor? The question was actually posed to you, and off the back of what you said, can you talk a bit about, you know, the disparity between the job ad and the reality, and maybe what some advice for people is looking to get into the industry?
I think that's the evolution of of cybersecurity as a career, right? I mean, when I started in cybersecurity 20 years ago, there weren't that many requirements and technical skills. But today, cybersecurity is quite, I want to say it's quite a mainstream, career, I would say, for a real IT option. So having a fundamental IT degree, or fundamental IT concepts, a strong IT concepts understanding, I think it's important and essential, much like what Linda said. But I think having the ability to solve problems, I think the problem solving skill sets is I would say probably ranks as number one. Thinking out of the box, being able to solve problems, probably ranks as number one skill set. I'll tell you what I did when I went out to recruit for people. When I was a cyber leader at Deloitte, and I'll tell you what I did. I took up adjunct professorship at NUS. I taught the Introduction to Information Security course and the Advanced Topics in Information Security course at the undergraduate level. And I went out to look specifically for students that were not just wanting to understand the concept of cybersecurity, but also display this flair or this edge. And I'll tell you, I'll give you a story. One of my students, undergrad students, he actually hacked into one of the admin systems at NUS at that time. And I was teaching them the ethics of hacking and ethical hacking behavior, white hat versus black hat type behavior. And I said, you know, we've got to come clean. I said, first of all, it wasn't my assignment for you. I asked you to hack NUS. Number one. Number two is, if you hacked it, if you didn't steal anything, I mean, you can just come clean and say you were just, you know, happenstance, just happened to stroll by and saw a door open, and you just, you know, knocked it ajar a little bit, and then go back and help them to close that door. And in the end, NUS was appreciative of what he did, and I ended up hiring him as a full-time sort of person to work with me and my team. So I mean, we do need the technical skills today, but I think having the problem-solving skills, and also I cannot emphasize. I mean, someone talked about networking. I think Linda talked about networking. They want to be an entrepreneur. Being in the industry, networking at the professional associations. You have multiple in Singapore. You have ISACA, you have the ISSA, you have the multiples security associations, going to the conferences. Singapore used to be we hope to come back with a big MICE event. We used to host big cybersecurity events. Going there to network with the right people at the right levels is also very important, right? All the things you can do.
Yeah,
get noticed.
Yeah, and so I think the net of your advice would be go work with NUS, don't hack NUS, right? That was the
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's good. We're almost at time here. I want to make sure we all get a fair crack. We could go on for ages. This is a fascinating group of people, but maybe just give Pedro and Ben a quick final kind of statement there to round us off. Pedro, what are you looking for when you're finding talent? Because you're in a position now where if Build 38 gets the kind of growth you're after, then you're going to be looking for different kinds of folks. But what are some things that you're looking for when you're approached by people?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that's been said by Linda and Victor. So eventually, what you need is the basics, especially if you know I'm going to have a meeting with Victor, and I'm going to explain him how we can contribute to his success. I cannot have someone that arrives late to the meeting from my side, or is not professional enough, or is not able to share the information that we have to do. So in that sense, I think the basics are fundamental. So you have to really work on these kind of things if you're going to work in cyber, because trust is extremely important. So let's say the hygienic part is definitely there. Curiosity, open-minded, that was already mentioned, and I think that brings us to the conclusion that we don't have really a shortage of talent problem in cybersecurity. What we have is a problem of shortage of time, right? Because there's a great pool of people out there that have all these skills, and the only thing they need is to get trained in the more specific skills in order to contribute in the cybersecurity industry. And the way that you can achieve that is hiring people based on mindset, on soft skills, and then bring the rest based on your grooming, on your training capabilities. And that needs time and investment, but that's definitely the way to solve that challenge. And yeah, I think that if you want to really move into cyber, there is place for everyone. So there's marketing jobs in cyber, there is sales jobs in cyber that don't require any kind of CS degree. Of course, if you want to be a cryptologist, you will need some background, but there's a space for everyone. And work on these basics. I'm an introvert myself, and I force as a founder to do networking and to introduce to people I don't know and to exchange name cards in the past. Now not that much anymore, but really to be a bit more outgoing in that sense, and that takes me efforts and time to invest and do it in a way. But that's, I think, one of the key elements that you have to do. You have to work on the basics to work in cyber.
Great, thanks, Pedro. With 1 minute remaining, Ben, what's your advice for anyone who's interested in the research analyst side of the business?
Well, I think one of the fundamentals that just kind of ties through everything we've been talking about here really comes down to staying curious and being curious about what's going on in the cyber world. There's so much going on out there. There's so many interesting things. Just ask those questions. I wonder a little bit about this. What's going on here? If I do X, Y, and Z, will this lead me to something else? Those are the sort of fundamentals that are just critical in this industry. Everything else you can build on. I mean, you can learn more, you can build things up. One of the other panelists said at one point about some of the fundamentals and learning on the job, I think was something that came up very briefly. There's so much that I've learned after, my official, university training and everything I've learned since actually being in industry, that just built. But that innate curiosity is what really kind of is the driving force really when it comes to learning and staying relevant within the industry, but also just to really get the most out of it. It really, really makes a difference.
Great. Couldn't agree more. Here. With a short amount of time we've got left, I'll say my advice to everyone is say yes before you're ready. Take on a challenge and stretch yourselves, and then you end up in interesting places. We're over time, and thank you for spending some time with us today. So from Victor, our CISO, Pedro, our founder, Ben, our threat analyst, Linda, our head of an incubator, and the proponent of being a white hat and a black hat in equal proportion, potentially, or more white hat than black hat. And from me, Ben, from the product marketing team, thank you to Grit Search, the recruitment company that's talent first in Asia. Thanks from our panel. We'll follow up with an email. Join with us on social media, connect and keep the conversation going. And we will see you all next time. So have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. Stay safe, and we'll talk soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.